In a cafe setting, this bamboo whisk comes with some real limitations. You can't use soap to wash, which means that there's some hygiene issues, which also means that you can't use this to mix sweeteners either. Over time, these prongs can break off and fall into the drink, which can be a problem too. So the question is there anything that we can use as alternatives effectively? In this video, we're going to compare 4 different tools that might be able to replace the bamboo whisk in a cafe setting. Let's see how they compare. Hi, I'm Yuki, I'm the founder of Tealife, and here we break down Japanese tea so you can become a Japanese tea expert. If you're a cafe owner or restaurant owner looking to add matcha to your menu or want to improve your matcha offering, then we're here to help. Make sure you register for a free newsletter from down below so you don't miss any useful information like this video moving forward. You'll also receive an FAQ sheet, the top 30 questions you receive from the customer at your cafe or restaurant regarding Japanese tea. You can hand it out to your staff, and from tomorrow, your customer experience will enhance. Now the setup for this experiment today, we're going to compare 5 different tools to make matcha. The first one is obviously the bamboo whisk. We'll set a baseline by using the bamboo whisk first. And then the second tool we're going to use, the resin whisk. So this is a plastic whisk-shaped tool, which is convenient because you can take apart and wash. So this is a nice tool for a cafe setting. We'll see how this performs. The third tool is just a bottle. So we'll use this as a shaker bottle. How does it perform if you just shake the matcha? The fourth is an electric whisk. You see these quite often. You press the button. This is battery powered, and then it'll twirl like this. Let's see how this performs. And then the last tool is a Nano Foamer, which is much more powerful than the electric whisk. Like that. So these are the 5 tools we're going to compare. And in order to compare, we're going to make usucha. Usucha is a very standard traditional way of drinking matcha. So it's just matcha with water. And then the good thing about usucha is we can also compare the foam. So we can check the quality of the foam and see if it compares to the bamboo whisk. When we compare, we're going to take a look at the smoothness of the matcha, the clumpiness of the matcha, and also the foam texture of the matcha as well. Other than the tools, we're going to try to keep everything as consistent as possible. So for the matcha, we'll use the sen matcha as always. So we use this sen matcha. This is an entry-level usucha grade matcha. So it's a nice matcha to use as an experiment. This is probably a higher grade matcha you would be encountering at a cafe setting. So that's what we'll use. We'll use 2 grams of this matcha to 60 milliliters of water. We'll sift the matcha before we start the mix. So that's criteria 1. We won't do any pre-mixing with water to make it smooth. We will skip that step. So it's just going to be really the quality of the tools that's doing the mixing. And other than that, all the other variables are going to be the same. Okay, so let's get on with the experiment. Okay, so here are the 5 tools I have here. And then the matcha, the 2 grams of matcha are pre-sifted into the tools already, or into the bowls already. So what I want to do is, rather than making each one individually and drinking them individually, I want to make them all at once and then drink them. I feel that would be a fairer way to compare. So first we'll try with the bamboo whisk. This is 60 milliliters of water. All right, let's move on to the Resin Whisk. I'm going to take this off camera as well. Looks good. Now the third one is shaker bottle. Okay, it's about 30 seconds. Now the electric whisk. All right, would that be enough? And then lastly, the Nano Foamer. All right. Very interesting because the quality of the bubble is very different as well. Obviously, the bottle stands out with the least amount of foam, but amount of air, the electric froth, and the resin whisk looks like it has more air than the others. So these two look very smooth and bouncy in terms of the bubbles. Okay, let's try drinking them one by one. This is the normal whisk. Mm, okay, good. So it's smooth, smooth, no clumps, nice foam. Yeah. So that's the benchmark. I'll keep this in mind, and let's go on to the tool number one, or the tool number two, I guess, the resin whisk. The resin whisk seems to have a little bit more airy bubbles. And what that contributes to is a little bit less of a smoothness and a little bit more astringency. So the mixing, the clumping, these are totally fine. But in terms of the smoothness, I think it reduces a little. And for the foam, it reduces a little in terms of points as well. Let's move on to the shaker bottle. So let's see how this goes. Hmm. Yeah, so I think for the shaker bottle, I still feel a little bit more of the matcha particles. So not completely dissolved. Matcha doesn't dissolve, it just gets suspended, but still get a little bit of the particles compared to the whisk. I think the whisk helps mix the water better than just shaking. The foam is weaker as well, but it doesn't feel airy, interestingly, unlike the resin whisk. And because of that, I think the astringency doesn't come out as much as the resin whisk, interestingly. So there is a slight difference in characteristics compared to the resin whisk. So let's move on to the electric whisk. The bubbles look large and it looks airy. Let's see how this tastes. Yeah, so this is very similar to resin whisk. So mixed well, so no clumps. I think the bubbles are airy, so what that contributes to, just like the resin whisk, is that less smoothness and a little bit more astringency. So very similar there. And then the final one, the Nano Foamer. Let's see how this tastes. The bubbles look very smooth. And they are. Wow, the Foamer might be the smoothest. It mixes extremely well. There are some like remnants on the bottom of the bowl that I wasn't able to capture. But what's the liquid itself is very smooth. The bubbles are not airy, so just like the bamboo whisk, the Nano Foamer is actually a very good tool to mix the matcha. And I think the time required to mix is, I didn't really measure that in this experiment, but I felt that it did a quick job of mixing as well. Okay, so let's summarize. What's the best tool to replace a bamboo whisk? Out of these four, the answer is quite obvious. It's the Nano Foamer. It basically replicated most of what the bamboo whisk did, except for some remnants at the bottom of the bowl. So this was very effective. The issue with the Nano Foamer is, unlike the bamboo whisk, you can't like really scrape the bottom of the bowl, so you can't really get these pieces to completely dissolve. So that is a little bit of a challenge. But if you're mixing to make Americano or a matcha latte, where you take this bowl and pour it into a different container, then that wouldn't really be a problem. So depending on how you use your tools, the Nano Foamer would certainly work. And again, because you can wash this tool, that's very effective at a cafe setting. Now, the second choice, so what comes after the Nano Foamer? This is quite difficult. It kind of depends. I would say that in terms of the quality of the mixing, the electric whisk and the resin whisk, these are completely the same. These result in uh, the same qualities. So the weaknesses are the exact same. They end up with airy bubbles. And because of the airiness, the astringency comes out and there's less smoothness. But that said, the resin whisk has an advantage compared to this electric whisk because you can still scrape the bottom of the bowl with the prongs. You don't have those matcha particles remaining on the bottom of the bowl compared to the electric whisk where you can see some of that there. You can't scrape those pieces off with electric whisk that easily. The shaker was interesting. The resulting matcha was actually, it tastes better because the matcha's bubbles quality wasn't as airy as the resin or the electric whisk. However, again, you felt the powder suspended in the water a little bit more than the others. So it didn't feel as smooth, which is a huge negative. So this is a little bit difficult. In a cafe setting, most of the cases, you don't really need the foam. So you don't really have to think about the airiness of the foam. The more important thing is the smoothness of the matcha. And this is for drinks like matcha lattes or matcha americanos, where you don't really need that foam again. So for that, I would suggest the resin whisk, because it ends up with a similar results as an electric whisk, but again, you can kind of scrape the bottom of the bowl with these prongs. So it's effective in completely mixing the matcha that way compared to the electric froth. So I would rank the resin whisk number 2, and then the number 3 would be this electric whisk because it's a little bit more smoother in terms of the water. And number 4 would be the bottle. Again, here I'm prioritizing the smoothness of the matcha over the bubble quality of the matcha. And in that case, the shaker bottle will come to the last place in terms of the tools that we use. Again, not really a straightforward answer. Each tool has its strengths and weaknesses, including the bamboo whisk. So for a cafe setting, it's more about which tool do you use for what kind of drink. So you have to think about that. Thank you for watching. Again, if you're a cafe or a restaurant looking to add matcha to your menu or looking to improve your matcha offering, then we're here to help. Please make sure you register to our free newsletter from down below. See you in the next video.